Oh, this is gonna be a weird one. Settle in, friends. We're gonna talk about some weird stuff. Me and Moo are just gonna hang out here. We're gonna talk about it's even hard for me to talk about the title of this video. All the burping, all the farting, all the pooping, the gas, this kind of stuff. The stuff that no one ever actually wants to talk about, but everyone always wonders about. Okay, so settle in. We're gonna get into some detail. You're gonna learn some stuff about me you probably never wanted to know, but maybe you're curious. I never thought I would make this video, but we're doing it. We're going for it. Okay, so one of the questions that comes up so much in Eat to Live is, what are my bowel movements supposed to look like? What if I'm constipated? What if I burp a lot or whatever? So I'm gonna, listen, this video is gonna be me telling you my personal experience. Whether you wanna hear it or not, you don't have to watch this video, but I'm gonna give you my personal experience. This is not medical advice. It's just stuff that I've heard from Dr. Fuhrman over the years, stuff that I've found to work for myself, and hopefully it helps you with some of this, okay? So let's just get into it. We're gonna start, one of the most common questions that people ask is like, okay, now I'm gonna just use some words here. We're gonna not laugh about everything. I'm just gonna get through this, okay? What is my poop supposed to look like? All right, I'm gonna give you my experience. So my personal story about this is that my bowel movements in my whole life have always been kind of problematic in the like, just kind of annoying, okay? Whenever I was on standard American diet stuff, it was generally like, okay, you just go to the bathroom, you just poop and you wipe, but it's kind of messy, right? It's like messy to wipe off. It takes a bunch of tries to get it all off, right? And that all changed when I started doing Eat to Live, and it actually was so fascinating because for the first time in my whole life, when I went 100% nutritarian, my bowel movements got to be like the easiest thing in the world. They'd happen first thing in the morning, right when I woke up. Everything would come out. I would feel so clean and clear, and the toilet paper would be clean and clear too. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't have to have messy poop anymore? What is going on? And it just kept going like that. I noticed the difference when it sort of depended on what I ate. If I had a lot of starches or grains or things like this, it would turn maybe a lot more nut butters and things like, it would turn more towards the old kind of bowel movements I had with a lot of, a little bit messiness, right? More formed, more solid. But I noticed when I was doing challenges, like if I would just do a smoothie for breakfast, I would do a salad for dinner, or for like lunch, dinner, I might have a little bit of fruit or whatever. If I had just 100% nutritarian day with mostly raw food, sometimes I would add soup in, but that would be sort of my protocol when I was trying to lose weight. During the periods when I was trying to lose weight, I would use this particular protocol, and my bowel movements, so interestingly, in the morning, it was like I couldn't hold it in, okay? It was like it had to come out. I was ready to go, like, this is it. You gotta go to the bathroom, right? Like you almost, like you gotta get to the toilet, right? And it was actually a little embarrassing when I started dating my now husband because, you know, I would be like maybe waking up at his place. Okay, that's TMI probably. But it was so embarrassing because I would have to like double flush because there would be little salad particles floating around, right? And I would have to make sure that that flushed down. What that indicates also is that I wasn't chewing as well as I could have, right? So, but for me, it didn't seem like too big of an issue, so I continued to do that. It was just kind of how it was. But chewing better and making sure that you kind of liquefy your bites before you swallow is gonna really help with that. So that's something to keep in mind, right? And actually chewing better is one of the biggest pieces of advice for no matter what issue you might have with digestion too, whether it's burping or flatulence or like the quality of your stool, that kind of thing. Chewing well is the best advice there. Do I usually do that? No, I'm not very good at chewing better, but it is important because it will help you also extract more nutrients. I read somewhere that you only get about 40% of the nutrition from your salads if you just chew them regularly, right? But you can get so much more nutrition out of them if you chew better. So that's poop. So that's kind of how it was in the beginning. But in the beginning, the other thing too was like I was very much addicted to food. And so grains, breads, things like this, I just avoided them at all costs because it was Oatmeal I didn't eat because it was too tough for me to have it in the house. I would overeat on it. So in the beginning, for the first several years, I rarely ate any of that. That's why my stool was so kind of loose for a long time there. Now that I've resolved so much of that with the life coaching and the mindset work that I do, I've resolved so much, and just time and practice and stuff have resolved so much of that overeating on that kind of stuff. So we have grains around the house. I feed my kids oatmeal all the time. We have bread on hand all the time. It's not a problem for me anymore. So now that I'm eating a little bit more grains and oatmeal and things like that, my stool has become more solid, right? Still though, it's the first thing that happens in the morning, right? Like I might be laying in bed, kind of waking up, and all of a sudden, ooh, gotta go to the bathroom, right? Which to me, I love that, right? That regularity. And that is so coveted by so many people, especially people who eat standard American diet. The other thing that's so interesting about, this is the weirdest sentence I never thought I would say in public, but the other thing that's so interesting about my stool is that it's not smelly, and the gas isn't smelly either when I'm like straight up nutritarian. Even with beans, even with cruciferous, eating cruciferous vegetables and things like this, the embarrassing stuff about digestion is no longer embarrassing for me. That's when I'm on track. If I go off and have some fried foods, or I go off and have a bunch of like oil or whatever, definitely dairy, things like that, it just reverts right back to, the way it used to be. And it was like that all the time. So that's pretty interesting, I think. I have some more things to say, but I'll come back to it. About burping, I noticed for me, like, we all have different bodies, right? So I'm just giving you my personal experience. You might have very different experience, especially with constipation. We'll get to constipation in a second. But like, I've never been a very constipated person. I've always had pretty regular bowel movements no matter what I ate. But we'll talk about constipation in a second. But I find that when I go way off track nowadays, I feel like my body has been doing nutritarian for so long, so many regular intervals, that when I go off track, my body's like, we don't accept this, we don't like it. My colon is like, we don't have the gut bacteria to break this stuff down anymore. Who are you playing with? And then I get these really intense burps that are like sulfur. So I know, like, when I go off track, it's such an uncomfortable experience for me, because especially gluten nowadays. I know that maybe that sounds really like annoying. I was never somebody who had issues with gluten, and now after my pregnancy, for some reason, I just can't do gluten anymore. Anytime I have regular flour bread, I turn into what I call Tweedledee or Tweedledum, from Alice in Wonderland. My tummy just goes like pregnant again. It's crazy how big my stomach gets. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, the bloating, it's just horrible. And so I find that when I get back to nutritarian, when it takes, or at least just whole foods, plant-based stuff, it takes 2-3 days to kind of get back, and then I just feel so much better. My tummy's flatter. It's not a problem anymore. So for me, I look at things based on how does my body react to it, and this has become a much more important thing for me, to listen to my body and to listen to the things that happen after I eat certain stuff. And so now it really is about, like, how did I do after I ate that thing or whatever. So for me, that's why I'm eliminating as much gluten as possible, trying not to do dairy anymore, and it's just been an up and down thing for me over the years because of the pregnancies. But now that I'm done being pregnant forever, I can start to focus on exactly how I want my body to feel for the rest of my life, and what I want to put into it as far as nutrition goes and all that, okay? So I get these really weird sulfur burps if I go off track. But if I'm on track and I'm eating really well, it's not a problem. But if you happen to have a lot of burping, it's the same advice. Make sure that you chew your food really well. And that's like the main thing, chew your food really well. You can also, some people can be sensitive to like fructose in the diet, or they can be sensitive to cruciferous foods or beans. So those are usually the 3 culprits. And what you want to do is kind of look at an elimination type diet, right? Like just sort of eliminate one of those things and see if it gets better. Really cut down on the amount of fruit and dried fruit that you're eating, see if it changes. Really cut back on the amount of beans you're eating, see if it changes. Eliminate the cruciferous for a while, see if it changes. Cruciferous meaning cabbage type things, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, that kind of thing, arugula, etc. Radishes are a big culprit, right? So trying to eliminate all of those categories for a day, 2-3 days, seeing if it gets better. And then you can add things in little by little to see what actually is doing it to you, okay? The main advice here, if you have any sort of issue like this, is to, once you find the culprit, add the culprit back in a tiny bit, little by little, over the next several weeks, right? Like a tablespoon or a teaspoon a day, just a teaspoon, try a teaspoon. The main reason that we have so many digestion issues when we eat certain foods like this is that it's just that our gut has not built up the type of gut bacteria that we need in order to break that food down inside of our intestine. So when we eat it, the colon's like, what do I do with this? And then everything gets all wonky because it doesn't have the right bacteria to break those things down. Especially if you've been coming from a lifetime of standard American diet, this can be a tough process for the body to get used to. But don't let digestion be the thing that holds you back from the healthiest diet, right? Do this little by little thing. So with beans, with cruciferous vegetables, perhaps with fruits and dried fruits as well. Taking your time to incorporate these, but the thing is, you have to eat those foods for this to work, because it actually comes from digesting those particular foods. That's where you get the bacteria from. So you have to eat the food regularly. Like, you can't take breaks to not have gas or whatever. You got to try to eat it regularly so that the body will build up that bacteria. So that's why the advice is eat a little bit every day, like a tiny bit every single day, and keep trying, keep working up. Now, even if you try that and you're one of the folks who still has issues with this, the best advice is always chewing your food as much as possible, right? Okay, supplements like Beano, not recommended, but for somebody who just literally cannot digest beans or whatever, it's okay, he said, in some cases, but we really try not to use things like Beano, okay? So when we talk about farting, we're talking about the same thing as burping, right? The sort of gas. Same kind of a thing with flatulence, right? Same kind of an idea. Chew your food really well, that kind of thing. You can also try to reduce the amount of meals that you have per day down to 2 meals instead of 1, but really the chewing is the main thing to try to work out here. So we've covered sort of burping, we've covered farting, we've covered poop. Oh, constipation now. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about, this is typically one of the main issues that people come across, is especially if they have been eating standard American diet for most of their life, when they start Eat to Live, I've heard so many times from so many clients, I'm so constipated, right? This is the same exact reason, because the intestines, the colon, not ready to digest this stuff in such large quantities the way that we eat them on the Eat to Live diet. So it can take a while for that gut to like get healed and figure out what it needs to do, reduce the inflammation, get the gut bacteria, all that kind of stuff, right? It can just take some time for the gut to adjust after years of lack of these types of foods, right? So as we're allowing our gut to adjust to this and get the microbiome going again, right? Like, meaning like, imagine inside of your gut is a whole like rainforest. I always think of like the rainforest when I think of the gut. Like, it's full of all these different creatures and bacteria and animals and things like this, but they're all really necessary to break food down properly. But if you've only been eating hot dogs your whole life, you've only had bacteria that needed to break down hot dogs, right? And now you're adding all this like plethora of new plant foods and things that you never really ate before. Your gut needs some time to like catch up. So once you've done this thing where you get to the point of, you know, feeling a little bit better and things like this, the problem is that some people will then, because it's so much fiber and because it's so many things that they haven't eaten before really in very many quantities, the gut goes, whoa, and it just stops up. Everything gets kind of like, you know, like a record scratch, like, hold on a sec, we got to figure this out. And you can become constipated this way. So same kind of advice, make sure that you're chewing your food really, really well. You wanna drink some water, that kind of stuff. The issue is that it really is just that leading up to it kind of a thing. We wanna just little by little. And so the other thing that we can do is, as I said, little by little quantities, but we can also have the smaller meals, have less meals perhaps. And what you really want to do is be flexible with what you're doing. So not like thinking I have to get everything right now. It's like you want to do this what's right for your body. So what works, what doesn't work, what hurts, what doesn't hurt. Are you having painful gas, things like this? Like process of elimination, using all these tricks. Now, I think the important point here is that we end up getting like our mindset messed up, because our state of mind about this messed up, because we're like, oh, my digestion isn't the way it used to be. I'm, you know, not able to do the stuff I used to do. I'm embarrassed to be in front of people, whatever. So we want to be careful not to like hold ourselves back from our lives just because we're having changing digestion here. We really want to keep going. But we also don't want to give up on Eat to Live just because of our digestion changing too, right? So this is about patience. Just keep going. Now, if we feel ourselves becoming very, very constipated, I have a couple tips here. So as I said, like chew your food really well. That's the obvious one. The other one is, now what I'm talking about here is, I have to remind you, this is not medical advice. This is just like my own experience, okay? What has worked for me is a supplement called Mag07. It's the vegan, like I get the vegan one. I'm gonna leave a link, my Amazon link for it down below, so you can check it out if you like. This is like a miracle product for me. Magnesium oxide, it's much, much safer than using a laxative, for instance. It's not something that you want to like become dependent on or use every single day for the rest of your life, but it is really helpful. For me, I found since I went on some medication that causes constipation, I use a little bit of it every night right now while I'm on this medication, and it really, really helps. You take 2, 3, 4, 5 of the little pills per night in the evening right before you go to bed, and by the morning you have a bowel movement guaranteed. Like, it's just so, it's not painful, it's so easy to use. If you take too much of it, you'll have bowel movements throughout the day, and you might have a little bit of diarrhea as well, but it really has always worked for me to get myself moving when I need to have some better digestion. Okay, so that's an idea. It's not, I'm not a doctor, it's not a medical recommendation, it's just my experience that I've used, okay? The other thing to consider is potentially Dr. Fuhrman's probiotics. If you've taken probiotics in the past, great, but probably you haven't taken Dr. Fuhrman's. When I've taken his before, my digestion goes whoosh, like really, really good. So consider taking his. I'll leave a link for those, my affiliate link down below as well, so you can check that out if you want to. I also have had great success with Kimberly Snyder's probiotics. She's a nutritionist that I actually used to work with back in the day. I really like her probiotics too, and I've always had really good digestion taking those too when I first start taking them, right? So that can be very helpful. So I'll leave links for all of those things down below. Let's see what else. So chew your food really well, make sure you're having some water, but don't drink too much water. We don't want to dilute everything. And also, if we're eating a fully nutritarian diet, we don't need a ton of water because we're getting so much water in our food, okay? Smoothies and soups and just the water content of lettuce and salad, things like this, okay? So there you have it. Some fun talk on some fun topics. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a little bit crazy for me to make. I've been wanting to make it for forever, but I guess I was just a little nervous. I got my nervousness out. It's fine. It's all good. We all poop, right? Okay, so let me know down in the comments below. Do you have any questions, thoughts, anything come up for you when you're watching this video? Any other questions? Remember, I am not a doctor, so I can't really give any indication about what might be happening for you personally, but I hope these tips helped you. Hey, do you love the content that I make, but maybe you're just struggling with staying consistent on Eat to Live or staying consistent with healthy eating in general? Me and Moo would like to know. Maybe you feel like you know exactly what to do intellectually, but you just can't stick with it, or you feel like your health is a ticking time bomb, and even that makes you overeat. Look, if you need help with emotional eating, I am your gal. I'm coming from a lot of emotional eating in my past. I've had so many challenges, including pregnancies, a twin pregnancy. I've been through breast cancer treatment. I am currently on weight gain causing hormone treatments. I get it, right? I get busy, stressful, I get all that stuff. And I have cracked the code on weight loss for myself and for my clients. I know exactly how to crack it for you. All you have to do is ask me for the code and I will give it to you. I offer a very specific program called the Triple H program. This is my proprietary mindset and healthy eating program that will help you end emotional eating, lose the weight for good, and know exactly how to do this for the rest of your life. It's a 3-part system that I use for myself and my clients to help them lose weight, even when they're stressed, when they're tired, when they're frustrated, anything like that. Anyone can lose weight with this system. If this sounds interesting to you, what are you waiting for? Sign up to watch my free training that's gonna tell you all about it. There's a link down below or up there or somewhere else. Just look for the link to watch that free training video, okay? So sign up for my free training video. It'll give you the information you need and then chat with us and we'll talk about it. Bye.